Hello in this broadcast time, the information program from the television channel Ostankino. Today, the President of Russia delivered an address over television in connection with the situation in the Chechnya Republic. In the address, Boris Yeltsin clarified the reason for the Dudayev regime being unlawful, summarized the first phase of resolving the crisis in Chechnya, and defined further steps in normalizing the situation in that republic. The situation in the Chechnya Republic, as it continued, had a growing and destructive effect on the stability in Russia. It became one of the major internal threats to the security of our country. The immediate restoration of constitutional order in the Chechen Republic was the only recourse to normalize the life on that land. Currently, the question is often asked, did the government have the right to resort to forceful action in Chechnya? This, believe me, is one of the most difficult questions. Russians for a long time, and justly, reproached us and me as president for being indecisive, for the absence of political will, the lack of desire to create order on the territory of the Chechnya Republic, an inexorable part of Russia. The extremely complicated situation called for most grave decisions to be adopted to implement armed forces on the territory of Chechnya. Everything occurring in Chechnya I keep personally under my special control. And now everything depends on those people armed with weapons in Chechnya and resisting lawful Russian authority. After all, I count on the goodwill of many of them and on their common sense. Again, I wish to address all the residents of Chechnya and in other republics of the Northern Caucasus. In this difficult time, the Chechen people need help and support. I believe in the age-old wisdom of the mountain peoples, and I believe that you will understand everything and help those who today are deceived and blinded to understand. Russia is not an enemy of the Muslims. Any nation living on its territory has the right to preserve its national ethnic observances within their traditions. And we all want only one thing, so that as soon as possible the life of Chechnya would enter a peaceful phase. The fate of the Chechen people must be defined not by the authorities of the criminal world, as it has been for the last 3 years, and not by those gunmen who have more weapons, but only the people themselves should decide how to live in the future, and so it will be. I want to assure all Russians, don't worry. Order and peace in Chechnya will be restored. And measures, furthermore, will be undertaken excluding the protraction of resolving this complicated problem. We agreed on this at yesterday's session of the Security Council of the Russian Federation. In his address, the President of Russia especially emphasized that the immediate regularization of the conflict in Chechnya is indispensable because citizens of Russia continue to die there. He noted that among the leadership in Grozny, there are those individuals who understand that resistance by militarized groups is senseless. One can only regret that in Grozny not everyone thinks that way. We have a videotape of an interview which Jahar Dudayev gave to a Turkish journalist. Moscow not only bombs, but it has also aimed a heavy missile with a nuclear warhead at us. You must help us from Turkey and help us with anti-aircraft missiles against their planes. Let them counteract Russian planes. Also send us a squadron of planes to Azerbaijan. Who are you afraid of? Of Russians? We are only 1 million, and they are 150 million strong, and we're not afraid. We will fight even if other Muslims don't support us. Allah will help us. You have large aircraft with distant radius of action. Give them to us, and we'll bomb and destroy Moscow. They're bombing Grozny, and we can and have the right to bomb Moscow. Give me some planes that can fly as far as Moscow, and I'll attack them. Here it is said that heavy missiles are aimed at Grozny, or they are being deployed there. And it's almost implied that perhaps nuclear bombs are to be dropped by aviation. In general, how do you, as a military person, assess this interview? The strategic territorial weapons of such a class in this situation are not deployed. Aviation, naturally, has never used such missiles. Regarding the second part, where he says that planes of another country should come and aid Zhahar personally to conduct an air raid off Moscow, I think that from the political point of view and military stance, this is an organizational issue and a practical issue. In order to conduct such an action, this is impossible in current circumstances. That airplanes of another country would fight on the territory of another country against someone else. Therefore, I assess this as a desire to drag neighboring countries into this situation. But I don't think that this operation or action will end in success. Returning to the interview of Zhahar Dudayev, I'll add that on local television in Grozny, he is announcing readiness to resume the dialogue process. And in an interview to an HR task correspondent today, he said that he does not wish the blood of Russian soldiers. According to reports which arrived today from the press service of the government of Russia and information agencies, the situation in Chechnya remains complicated. During the last day, here, 2 Russian military servicemen died. Units of the internal forces and the Ministry of Defense continue to pursue their blockade of Grozny from the northerly, westerly, and easterly directions, exposing hiding places of militarized formations. All night in Grozny, clashes continued, and at dawn, relative calm set in the city. Many residents of the city are spending alarming hours in basements of their homes, and as previously, there is no electricity, water, communications are severed. During the last day, in the position and character of actions of Russian military units, there were no significant changes. Armed clashes occurred in areas of the towns of Petropavlovskaya, Pervomayskaya, Oktyabrskaya, and Argun. In Chechnya, a sparse trickle of gunmen from the capital to the neighboring villages has been noted. During the last night, a unit of quick response and military troops of the internal affairs near the populous point Isherskaya annihilated a group of commandos and several units of vehicular combat technology. According to information from the press service of the government of Russia, Zhahar Dudayev met with the leaders of the Chechen National Council of the Republic of Dagestan, who demanded the release of previously captured internal affairs troops, but met with refusal. Dudayev demanded the immediate opening of a second front in the rear of the Russian forces. After the conversation, the leaders of the National Chechen Council decided to cease any contact with Dudayev. They stated that the igniting of a fire in Dagestan is impermissible. The first meeting of the Observation Commission organizing the dialogue process in Chechnya was chaired today by the Vice Premier of the government of Russia, Nikolai Yegorov. Another attempt to resume dialogue with Grozny ended in failure. This became clear today at the meeting of the Observing Commission organizing the dialogue process in Chechnya. The Deputy Chairman of the Federative Council, Ramazan Abdullatipov, will not fly in the next days to Makhachkala for a meeting with the Chechen parliamentary delegation. Upon the end of the meeting, held behind closed doors, the Vice Premier of Russia, Nikolai Yegorov, stated that we agreed that when circumstances do arise conducive to conducting dialogues, and for that purpose, I, Stepashin, and Kvashnin have been delegated, then the Observation Committee of both chambers of Parliament will be present at the dialogues and hence perform their functions. So, according to Nikolai Yegorov, conditions to conduct dialogue have not yet ripened. It's still unclear in what manner organs of federal rule in Chechnya will be restored if the military phase of the operation has already been concluded. The Immigration Services today reported that the number of officially registered refugees from Chechnya is approaching 31,000. In Dagestan, officially more than 25,000. However, local experts feel that the true number of refugees is far greater. They're housed in nurseries, cultural centers, and schools. The authorities are helped by local residents. And so in the village Osmayurt, each local family apparently has taken in 10 people. In the villages Agbulatur and Novoselskaya, the number of refugees has already by twofold exceeded the number of local residents. The basic flow of Russian military who were injured in combat in the Chechnya Republic, after having been provided with the basic medical aid in the combat field hospital in Mozdok, are evacuated via Vladikavkaz, Krasnodar and Rostov, admitted to the Central Military Clinical Hospital Burdenka, located in Moscow, are only those who are in serious condition. The injuries are very serious, injuries which require lengthy terms of treatment and rehabilitation. For example, we have here currently the senior Lieutenant Yermolov with temporary spinal paralysis. He could have complications with infections and bed sores, and there will be a long battle for his life. These fellows have fulfilled their military service with honor, and because of timely medical aid provided by the military doctors on the battlefield as well as in the rear hospitals, tens of lives of Russian troops were saved. Currently, the condition of the health of the 23 soldiers and officers in the main military clinical hospital, Burdenka, causes no alarm. What does cause alarm is the state of the economy of Chechnya. There, the task will be to restore almost all oil refineries. The overwhelming majority are not operating today, stated by the specialists of the Ministry of Fuel and Energy of Russia. According to their data, during the last 3 years, volume of oil production in Chechnya has been cut in half, and to restore the entire economy of Chechnya, more than 1 trillion rubles will be necessary. This was stated today by the first deputy of the chairman of the government of Russia, Alexis Kavets. But the military conflict in Chechnya causes serious economic damage to other regions of Russia. The word Caucasus, which for years the majority of Russians associated with a carefree rest during their vacation, today sounds menacing. And although on the side of the Caucasus Ridge, opposite Chechnya and the Republic Kadygia, life remains stable, the word Caucasus is still frightening. For those vacationing businessmen and simple residents who are visiting relatives or friends. The valley, Olaganaki, of storybook beauty no longer attracts tourists. Businessmen are not investing money in developing the resort sector and tourism in the Switzerland of the Caucasus. The largest confectionery factory, Maikovsky, in the Caucasus, with a monthly turnover of 5 billion rubles, is also sustaining losses. It managed in the last years to maintain its previous quality and yield, with all social benefits for its staff. Currently, it's in a difficult economic situation only because people fear the word Caucasus. I feel that they should completely believe us that everything is normal here. The flight of capital from Russia continues. This was stated by the chairman of the State Duma, Ivan Rybkin. According to his information, each month Russian capital drifts abroad in the amount of $2 billion. During the last 4 years, the sum overall has reached $100 billion. Ivan Rybkin suggested extraordinary measures be undertaken, even to the point of tax amnesty for the return of Russian capital home. Currently, because of the absence of payment-capable demand, the majority of Russian oil refining plants are working at only half their capacity. Many are on the verge of bankruptcy. Meanwhile, crude oil, incidentally mostly at dumping prices, goes abroad. In the opinion of the leading economists, those who must help overcome the crisis in the sector should be major, vertically integrated holdings companies with a full manufacturing trade cycle, from the oil fields to the gas pump. On the decision of government, already 8 such structures were set up, and there is an attempt to attract colleagues from the CIS countries to become involved. But for now, only the company Slav Oil has daughter companies located on the territory of Russia and the Republic of Belarus. Slavneft managed to acquire a large package of the shares of the Muzyrsky oil refining plant. This company is contemporary, capable of refining almost 12 million tons of oil per year. Through the capabilities of the company Slav Oil, we today can cover 60% of the oil production market in the Republic of Belarus. In this connection, naturally, there will be corresponding deliveries from Belarus of items which we need, that is, oils, tires, and goods of domestic consumption which we need. That is, we will solve the problem of non-payment not only through direct cash payments, but through compensating deliveries of goods from plants operating on the territory of Belarus. In this fashion, cooperation will be mutually beneficial. Belarus in the future will not be left without fuel sources, and Russia will not lose its traditional sales markets, because the Muzyrsky plant is situated close to basic roads along which oil moves to the west. This simplifies the export of oil products to Ukraine and other countries. The deliveries of the company of Ros weapons to Turkmenistan will be paid for by Turkmenian Gas. A protocol on this fashion of mutual transaction was signed in Ashgabat today. In January of next year, Ros Vooruzhenie plans in Ashgabat to open its first branch in the CIS countries. An undoubted benefit for society, conversion has become a serious problem for the defense plans. While the defense sector was the favorite child of the government, there were no worries over orders or salaries or developing new capabilities. The Kirovsky plant, Mayak, lived well then, too. Incidentally, conversion and declassification helped us to film in Mayak. Previously, television was not allowed close. In pre-conversion times, the military order here was 90%. Now, this 90% is comprised of domestic consumption goods. Of course, the military order still stands, but often it hinders our work because we don't know precisely what the defense order will be and we can't plan our operations. In these shaky circumstances, the Mayak staff manages as it can, applying its high technologies to produce domestic appliances, microwave ovens, and sewing machines. They manufacture toys and goods which are close to defense specifics, self-defense weapons, and yet from time to time entire facilities are laid off. The problem is sales. Goods produced through conversion is rather expensive and doesn't always stand up to competition with same import goods. This was stated by the head engineer, Vladimir Rudminsky. The problem is with foreign investments. In order to interest them in cooperating with the plant, government guarantees are necessary. And currently, this is the main objective at the Mayak plant in Kirov. And if investments are received, the endless vacation for many qualified workers will be over. The Russian defense industry has a rich history, and during these days it marks a significant date. 80 years ago, to the arsenal of the Russian army, the world's first bomber, the Ilya Muromets, was added, and then the organization of squadrons of aircraft of the future aviation of Russia began. Despite the stubborn silence of law enforcement organs of Petersburg and the indirect comments of the lawyers of Yakubovsky, yet a faint ray of light did seep through the prison bars. So today's article in the publication Smena confidently connects the arrest of the famous Moscow attorney with the theft of manuscripts from the Russian National Library. One of those detained with the unique manuscripts, as the newspaper asserts, was the personal bodyguard and chauffeur of Dmitry Yakubovsky, who previously was employed in the 9th Division, which until just recently provided protection for top state officials. Involvement in the library theft is denied by the detainee. Possibly that is the reason why, for 1 week, Yakubovsky has not yet been charged, and he is only suspected in the theft of the priceless books. There's one more detail which is reported by Smena. The detainment of General Dima occurred in the presence of one highly placed official of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. If so, that means the Petersburg law enforcement team played only the role of following orders in this confusing affair, and the entire operation and engineering of the operation comes from on top. It's not excluded that that is the explanation for the irritable silence of the local law enforcement officials. The Aka is now the youngest sister of the Kamaz. Here at Kamaz plant, they will build most of these compacts. At one of its branches, the plant for compact automobiles. From the new year, Avtovaz will stop producing the Aka, thinking it's unprofitable, but Kamaz has undertaken it, changed the body, and produces 10,000 a year, intends to double its yield, and someday bring it up to 40,000. Incidentally, marketing services have calculated that the bottomless Russian market can absorb 10 times more, 400,000 domestic vehicles. Is that unprofitable? The father of automobile production, Henry Ford, felt that 2 inexpensive cars are better than 1 expensive one. Incidentally, the deputy director of the plant of compact cars, Vyacheslav Shulpin, has been driving his Aka for 5 years. My automobile has already driven more than 100,000. That means that resource point where everyone expected it to break down, and I'm still using it. The emissions test has showed that the automobile is operating at normal levels. According to the Minister of Labor of Russia, Gennady Melekyan, inflation in January will be around 15%. He feels that this will be precipitated mostly by the increase in prices on foods and services. Reforms being conducted in the trade system have led, in fact, to the liquidation of network of state stores. On this situation, our correspondent in Karelia reports. Each new food processing machine in remote villages is greeted like a holiday. People file into the usual lineups. That's how it was, and it is that way still. Instead of the 18 suppliers to the timber workers of Karelia, after obvious reforms in trade, several tens of privately owned firms formed. On the principle of the economic profitability, in the last 2 years, they have closed down 1/3 of the stores here, reducing trade turnover by 2.5 times. The choice of goods in those remaining is not vast. Canned goods, bread and wine, there's not even the most vital goods. Poor purchasing capability, high transportation costs do not attract even businessmen. And those that do come prefer to sell only Snickers bars. The offended by unfulfilled hopes, not spoiled by comfort, conquerors of the Karelian taiga of the 1950s, today have become hostages of the economic situation. Solutions are being sought. One of the options which the Committee on Trade in the Republic of Karelia sees in creating regional aid funds, which uses financial levers for the rehabilitation of the timber and rural trade. The decision of Nagorno-Karabakh to institute the post of presidency as the head of that territorial formation can cause some friction in relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan. The latter did not delay with a sharply negative assessment of this event. Karabakh, for almost 8 months since the 12th of May, has had a relatively peaceful life. The war has subsided, and this has permitted the Supreme Soviet of the self-declared republic to resume work, which was severed over the course of all those months, and adopt a law on the presidency. The first head of the independent Karabakh, without any alternative, has been elected. He is the chairman of the State Committee of Defense of the NKR, Robert Kuchiran. He's 40 years old and belongs to no party. He's married and has 3 children and works in the peaceful profession of engineering. The president of the Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, according to that law, was elected for 2 years, and when that term expires, the head of the republic will be elected not by parliament, but by general elections for the next 5 years. In Azerbaijan, there was a very negative reaction to the declaration of a president of the so-called Nagorno-Karabakh Republic. The step was undertaken intentionally by the Armenian side, said the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic, Ghassan Ghassanov, while the attention of everyone is glued to events in Chechnya, can be assessed as a challenge to the world community, which is striving to resolve the Karabakh conflict. Russia is for the peaceful resolution of the situation in Nagorno-Karabakh, considering the uniqueness of the problems of Nagorno-Karabakh and given the principal recognition of the inviolability of Azerbaijan's borders. This was the formulation of the Russian side's attitude to the situation in Karabakh made by the Director of the Department of the Information of Press, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Grigory Karasin. The ceasefire agreement between the Serbian Republic and the Muslim Croat Federation overall is being observed. Meanwhile, Bosnian Croats, together with the regular army of Croatia, continue to attack Serb positions in the southwest of Bosnia. In connection with this, the President of the Serb Republic, Karadzic, sent an official protest to the UN Secretary General. In the address, it's emphasized that the Croat advance threatens the observation of the ceasefire, achieved through the mediation of Jimmy Carter. The peace agreement is under threat also in western Bosnia. There also clashes are underway, but among Muslims. 3 French and 1 Belgian missionaries were killed this morning in Algiers, said the Minister of Foreign Affairs of France this morning. Paris has expressed to the Algerian authorities its serious concern in connection with this new terrorist act. The number of French nationals who died in Algeria at the hands of terrorists during the last half years has reached 25. These people, weeping from joy in the Marseille airport are yesterday's hostages and the passengers of the A300 Airbus. For 54 hours, they were held in a plane with terrorists, and each of them at any moment could have become the next victim. The fate of the 170 passengers kept not only their relatives under tension, but the press and politicians of France, Algeria, and other countries. And although during storming the plane, 25 people were injured and the terrorists who belonged to the extremist armed Islamic group were killed, the operation to free the hostages was successful. That is the opinion of the Prime Minister of France, Balladur. The hijacking of the French Airbus and the murder of 4 hostages has again underscored the reality of the fact that no country is insured against international terrorism. Only recently, explosions have ceased in Northern Ireland and Great Britain. Many remember how in the autumn terrorists hijacked planes in Norway and Greece. And that's far from the complete list, not even considering the criminal financial terrorism in Eastern Europe. Yes, terrorism has many faces. Each is repulsive and has no right to exist. The drama with the French Aerobus again raises before politicians the cursed question how to put an end to that evil. But for now, French authorities have limited themselves to severing air contact with Algeria and asked their citizens to leave the territory of that country. The head of the Italian government, Luigi Scalfaro, has begun political consultations with leading parties and heads of the German chambers of parliament to seek candidates for the post of the new head of government and on the question of early parliamentary elections. And during these days of the most urgent government crisis in Italy, our personal correspondent has been dispatched, Yuri Vubernov. In Italy, not only Rome seems eternal, the sea is always blue, and everywhere the magical winding of the coastline, perpetually garrulous residents, and even the entire post-war policy seemed unshakable. However, nothing is eternal, and not only under the moon, but under the Italian sun as well. The collapse of communism has made it possible to say aloud what was known but was kept silent over, on pervasive corruption in the ruling elite. So they were scattered, some into retirement, some under investigation, and on the rubble of the First Republic, new forces flew their banner, headed by Silvio Berlusconi. The success at the March elections of his movement, Italy Forward, made it possible to create a ruling right-centrist coalition, which is far more right than centrist. This alliance was accepted painfully by democratic Italy. It produced deep stratification in society and eventually caused a profound power crisis. It's curious that the direct detonator was the step of the government party, the League of the North, expressing disagreement with the policies of Berlusconi and submitted a resolution of non-confidence together with the opposition parties. It's surprising that these passions boil in cold water because there is no economic basis for them. During the trimester, July to September, the growth of industrial goods is 4.4% and is higher than in any other Western European country. The consumption of pizza is also growing, although some of the government figures don't approve of that, feeling that the favorite national dish presents a distorted angle of the country and creates a skewed image of Italy outside. In vain, because the party of pizza lovers has the largest number of members here, and whoever takes it on will lose. Who's who in the German establishment? Who is most influential and who is most liked? The answer to this question is the annually compiled list by the Institute Force of the 200 most important people of 1994. And so in first place is the Federal Chancellor Helmut Kohl, who earned the place for Russian troop withdrawal from the country and success in unifying Germany. In second place is the 27-year-old tennis player Boris Becker for his will to win. In third is the 44-year-old most popular talk show host Thomas Gottschall, who on RTL TV created the most highly rated night entertainment program. He began 17 years ago with overviews of rock and pop parades. Today, his program is considered to be an honor to be invited by world movie stars, politicians, models, members of the royal families. The majority of other top spots in the table of ranks was taken by the country's famous scientists, physicists, mathematicians, physicians, whose accomplishments have elevated the authority of the nation, says the magazine Bunte. In 25th place in the list of 200 is the president of the country, Roman Herzog. In 88th, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Klaus Kinkel. In the 106th, the head communist of the FRG, Gregor Gysi. The low rating of politicians is explained simply. In a democratic country, the rise of an extremist obliterator is impossible. Platforms, promises, and adherence to promises among all parties are very similar, and that means that nothing can fundamentally change the life of a burgher. Good work and well-being here are not heavenly manna, but the result of meticulous labor. The Libyan leader, Muammar Gaddafi, has offered Turkey to sell to Libya the waters of the river Monagat, which flows into the Mediterranean. Initially, Gaddafi's idea was to ship the water in large tankers, and in the next phase, the Libyan side intends to lay a pipeline through the Mediterranean, which will connect the two countries. The Trianon Palace in Versailles near Paris, where in the year 1919 the Versailles Peace Treaty was signed, is destined to again play an important role in European history in the saving and preservation for descendants of its documentary heritage. The most priceless treasury of its Russian State Historical Archive in St. Petersburg will be irreparable if not restored and rebuilt, that it is its serious aged treasuries in which there are 7 million documents about the history of Russia and its ties with the outer world from the times of Queen Catherine to the 1917. And alarm was sounded abroad as well. In Versailles, the local Baroque Association, supported by UNESCO and the International Council of Archives, consulted with specialists to develop a project to save the archives. And here, another meeting of those interested in preserving the documentary memory of Russia. And not only it, because the archive is the wealth of all Europe and the civilized world. Part of its materials were brought currently for a showing from Petersburg to Versailles. We received guarantees from the European Council and UNESCO, according to which the archives in St. Petersburg will be granted a special international status. And it's understandable funds are needed, around $20 million, for 10 years of reconstruction and restoration of the archive building. According to the head of the Baroque Association, Yves Mikhailov, the money for next year has already been collected. One can only hope that the financial industrial circles of Western Europe, who expressed willingness to participate in this project, will complete the project of the saving of the Russian historical archives. The Snow Queen herself, from the story of Andersen, met us at the exhibit of artists who work for theater, cinema, and television in the central house of the artist. In 6 auditoriums, where original works are displayed of 300 stage decorators of Russia, famous ones and those making their first steps in the field. Here there are the grandiose models of Boris Messerera and the absolute miniature, just as this dollhouse of Alexei Kondratiev, sketches, decorations, costumes for historical films, and the costumes themselves executed with absolute precision. And these heroes need no introduction. The artist Gin drew them for the film Uninhabited Heavens. At this pre-New Year display, times, eras, and heroes seem to have collided from all well-known films and productions performed in theater and on television. And for the children, of course, the dolls were most popular. Here, there is an ocean of them from all possible cartoons and stories. All the displays were shown for the first time to viewers. Of course, what we see on stages and screens is the painstaking work not only of the directors and actors, but of artists who often create such true works of art. At exhibits and in concert halls during these days, there are especially many children. Traditional and main entertainment which we offer our children during school vacations are the New Year's tree parties. With adults, not everything is quite clear. They're still waiting for the 31st, but for children, they've been celebrating it for 3 days. That's when it's the holidays. You smell tangerines, celebration every day, gifts a must. Not grandiose, but tasty. Santa Claus from Las Vegas in Luzhniki Stadium, a strange New Year show in the pool, and in the former Pioneer Palace, and now in the Creativity Building on the Vorobyovy, and the New Year tree in Kremlin. Now, not a live one, but very nice, at least they like it. Boys and girls flock in like deputy troops, and the guards, sighing, can rest on escalators instead of VIPs. To the little folk, the grandfather Frost descends with the Snow Maiden, and in the foyers there's not our future being planned, but real, although, and not real, but fairy tale castles and houses are planned, and not prominent officials in the halls, but little dogs which one may embrace, a horse called Manyunya, and little elves with greetings. And in the auditorium, where the chairs are too big, the children feel quite comfortable, while adults are organizing, paying, calculating, telling humanity that these days 550,000 children will see the tree in Luzhniki. The Kremlin Children's Joy will cost the government of Moscow 70,000 rubles per child, for adults 10, and in suburban camps and near Moscow in the city, 100 to 170 of such sites will be operating. The children are waiting for a miracle, and even if on the stage it's the 100th version of the same old Russian story where good conquers evil, but the miracle does happen. Grandfather Frost and Snow Maiden are found, and New Year comes, and everyone rejoices. And so it goes every day. Aren't they lucky? And in principle, very little is needed to make a celebration for the children and not ruin their holidays with lectures and reproaches. All the best. The 6-time Olympic champion, Lyubov Yegorova, has headed the top 10 of the best athletes of Russia of the waning year. Good evening. In titles and awards are other marvelous graces not behind Larisa Latinina. In the collection of the amazing gymnast, there are 9 gold Olympic medals. Today, Larisa Semyonovna celebrates a birthday in the program Time. Veronika Karpova reports. How old is she now? And does that mean anything today? Such people comprise the golden fund of domestic sports. The triumphant toasting of the most titled athlete in the history of the Olympics was held in the Olympic Committee of Russia. She has always been her own person. She has always been a person who was accessible and simple, and a person for whom nothing was strange or foreign, and very kind. And another pleasant item, concern for young athletes is an important matter, decided the leadership of the Grand Dynamo Club and brought the children from the Alyashin Sports School a gift, a sports uniform. There's hope that this will help the young talents to become a worthy Dynamo replacement. Pre-New Year days are rich with hockey tournaments. A defeat marked the beginning of the youth team's tournament in Canada for the Russian team, who rivaled the United States team 3-4. In Switzerland, the traditional competitions for the Spengler Cup and the Togliatti Lada in the Cup of the European Champions beat Malna 3-1. And in conclusion, a small announcement. Kamaz Master and the television channel Ostankiно present a New Year auto racing adventure from the 1st to 15th of January, a grandiose marathon race Paris-Granada-Dakar. In the 17th Dakar, there's a record number of Russian racers and mechanics for the first time, and together with them, for the first time, special correspondents from the television company Ostankiно. Good evening. The northern and central regions of Russia, as previously, are under the influence of a lethargic cyclone with a center over the Barents Sea. And tomorrow, the weather of that area will be influenced by another cyclone, which is shifting through into the Leningrad district and the atmospheric fronts connected with it. Therefore, in the Murmansk, Arkhangelsk districts in Karelia, in the Republic of Komi and the Nenets Autonomous District, it will remain cloudy with isolated snows, blizzards, and wind gusts, temperatures from +1 to -4. In the northeast of Komi, -8 degrees. In the northwest region, in the Baltic countries, and in the Kaliningrad district, cloudy skies are expected with snow and blizzards, temperatures from +1 to -4 degrees. The central and central Chernozem regions, Belarus and Ukraine, tomorrow will be under the influence of frontal divisions. It will be cloudy with snows and blizzards, temperatures from +1 to -4 degrees. In Moldova and in the south of Ukraine, it will remain cloudy with brief periods of precipitation, isolated fog patches during the day, -2 to +3. In the Stavropol and Krasnodar area in the Rostov district, it's cloudy with patches of rain, temperatures from +3 to 8 degrees. In the republics of the Northern Caucasus, the weather will improve somewhat. In Ingushetia and in Chechnya, it will be partly cloudy, mostly without precipitation. Morning and evening patches of fog during the day from -2 to +3 degrees. In Dagestan, around 7. Beyond the Caucasus, partly cloudy skies without precipitation. Temperature in Azerbaijan, +5 to 10 in Georgia, +1 to 6 in Armenia, -3 to +2. In St. Petersburg, tomorrow, it will be cloudy with patches of snow and some blizzard, -1 to 3 degrees. In Moscow, it will remain cloudy with some isolated snow and blizzard patches. Night temperatures -5 to 7, during the day -1 to 3. That was the information compiled by the Oceanic Meteorological Center. I bid you farewell and wish you all the best. Goodbye.